In this video, we're going to talk about the compound sliding miter saw. This saw, you can cut angles, bevels. It has a sliding action which allows you to cut wider boards. And it's also referred to as a chop saw because of the way it operates. This saw is also referred to as a miter saw. It's called that because it is modeled after a miter box, which is something carpenters used to use before this type of saw was invented. Another key feature is that this saw can do compound cuts, which means it can do an angle cut and a bevel cut. It can do them separately, or you can do them at the same time, creating a compound cut. The main purpose of a miter saw is to cut materials to length. One useful trick you can use with this saw is setting up stop blocks. As you can see in this example, I have marked a board around 12 inches. First, you set the board up to where the mark you want to cut is lined up with a blade, as so. Then you take a scrap piece of wood and you butt it up to the board on the other end, clamping it off. What this does is allows you to cut multiple boards the same length without having to measure each board. This saves you a lot of time and ensures that each of your boards is cut accurately to match one another. There are a lot of rules of safety that come with using a miter saw. The first and most important rule is to make sure the material you're cutting is tight against the fence. Always remember to put your material tight against the fence. If you do not, and the material is away from the fence, when you start to cut it, as soon as that blade touches the material, it is going to shove it towards the fence and cause kickback with the blade. When kickback occurs, it usually either throws the board violently or can pull your hand into the blade at worst. As you will see here, this is a proper procedure for cutting a board. Once the board is firmly against the fence, you slowly lower the blade through the wood. And as you will notice, I will not raise it back up until the blade is fully stopped. Another important precaution with this saw is where you place your hands while operating it. Most miter saws are set up for right-handed people. This means you will operate the saw with your right hand and you will hold the material with your left hand. As you'll notice, I have my left hand as far over to the left on this piece of material as I can. You want to keep your hand away from the blade as much as possible. This way, if any kickback does occur, it's less likely to be able to pull your hand into the blade. One advantage of a sliding compound miter saw is that it allows you to cut wider material. This saw allows you to cut up to 14-inch wide boards. In this example, this is a 2x10, which is roughly 9¼ inches wide. As you can see, I have plenty of saw for cutting this. The most important thing when you use a slider is you pull the slider out all the way before squeezing the trigger. Then once you squeeze the trigger, you lower the blade down all the way, pushing it slowly all the way back. And one of the most important things to remember here is never squeeze the trigger when the blade is touching the wood. That will cause kickback. Another way you can avoid kickback is to stay away from cutting warped wood. As you can see in this example, this board is very twisted. If I were to try to cut this with a saw, it would create a pinch as I was sawing through it. Pinching creates kickback, and kickback creates accidents. So always avoid cutting warped wood. And lastly, miter saws are frequently used on site in construction. They are also used quite often in workshops. permanently set up in a miter station, which gives the user the ability to cut long boards without the saw moving around. Thank you for watching.